But if this, kind of like we saw with MJ Melendez, if this ability to make contact is truly a new skill, we might have something here. That is Jordyn Adams. Let me take a break, get back, and I'll finish up the hitters. Number 6 is Leandro Cedeno, first baseman with the Arizona Diamondbacks. He is in Double-A, and he's 23 years old. 11 for 22, 3 home runs, 7 strikeouts, and 6 walks. And for the season, 272 plate appearances, a 298 batting average, a 375 on-base percentage, 16 home runs. He's a big, slow dude, no stolen bases, 21% strikeout rate, and a 10% walk rate. It's a guy that a lot of people haven't heard of, and I mean, there's definitely hair on this guy, so don't get overly excited, but he's an interesting guy, right? Top of the chart power, and if he continues to post some reasonable strikeout and walk rates, there's a chance he gets playing time at the highest level. And as I said, I was reading his stat line, it's a big, gigantic dude, doesn't move very well. At best, he's a first baseman, probably a DH in the big leagues. Reminds me a little bit of Christian Walker, who last I saw had a bunch of home runs at hitting 204. So, if you told me that that's Leandro Cedeno, yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, if that works for you and Christian Walker's owned in a lot of leagues, then great. I mean, that's the kind of player I think he could be. And it is pretty big, massive raw power. And quite frankly, if he continues to only strike out in the low 20s, he's going to be a lot better than Christian Walker. So he's borderline interesting for me here. So that is Leandro Cedeno, Leandro, Cedeno, Cedeno. I don't know which country he's from, because that's actually more of a Leandro's. I know a bunch of Leandros when I spent a lot of time in Brazil. So I don't actually know where he is. What country he's from. Let me look that up real quick. Leandro. Well, you don't want to listen to me type, so I will find that at the next break to find out exactly where he is from. So that's number 6. Number 7 is Ronny Simon, second baseman with Tampa Bay High A. He is 22 years old. Typical 22 years old. It's actually relatively young for IA for High A for the Tampa Bay Rays. He was 11 for 24, 3 home runs, 3 stolen bases, 4 strikeouts, and 2 walks. For the season, 266 plate appearances, 274 batting average, 309 on-base percentage, 13 home runs, 22 stolen bases, 24% strikeout rate, and a 4% walk rate. Look, there could be something there with Simon. Got a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. He doesn't walk at all, so it's a fairly aggressive approach, which is very un-Rays-like. I mean, they don't like guys who don't get on base. So is he a guy that could get moved? There's plenty of tools there for him to be a power speed guy, but it could come at the cost of a sub 300 on base percentage. And again, that's not a Rays typical player. So if he gets moved to like the Miami Marlins, which is a team that doesn't really care about on base percentage, I kind of get even more excited about that. But an interesting kid I wanted to bring forward because nobody is talking about him. But 13 home runs and 22 stolen bases and only 266 plate appearances. That should get your attention. The next 2 guys are famous guys and kids that I always love to talk about. The first is my buddy Diego Cartaya. He is a catcher. He is with the Dodgers. He is in High A. He is 21 years old. Everybody knows this if you listen to my... Actually, Leandro Cedeno is from Venezuela, so it's interesting. If you listen to my podcast, I talk about Cartaya all the time. He was 6 for 18, 3 home runs. He is slow. He is a catcher. He has no stolen bases, 5 strikeouts and 4 walks. And for the season, 271 plate appearances, a 283 batting average, a 421 on-base percentage, 14 home runs. Again, he is slow. He is a catcher. There is no stolen bases. And a 27% strikeout rate and a 12% walk rate. He's striking out more than I would like, but the 12% walk rate and the power The on-base percentage, it's all there. He's making hard contact. He's got a high batting average of balls in play. I just think there is power potential there with high on-base skills, and I think it's going to make him an elite offensive catcher. I think it's a top 5 catcher in my book. He is getting better. My understanding, I haven't seen him this year. He is getting better behind the plate defensively, and that can only help his upside. Again, we talk about it ad nauseum. What do the Dodgers do with Will Smith? I think they should sign him long term. I wouldn't do a crazy 10-year deal, but I would do a JT Realmuto kind of, what is it, Realmuto in for 5 or 6 years? I would do that kind of deal with Will Smith. I don't care how good Diego Cartaya could be. I mean, Will Smith is already really good and still relatively young, but I would not go beyond like 5 years, maybe 6 years. I wouldn't go beyond that to sign Will Smith. I would then maybe bet on Cartaya. So, I mean, that gives them a lot of kind of irons in the fire, if you will, different options to play there. But Cartaya, regardless, if he stays with the Dodgers or moves on and gets traded, huge upside there. And again, he's not going to be Jordyn Alvarez, who's has a chance to hit 50 home runs this year. I think he hit number 25 yesterday, who is, to me, is the model of power and on-base percentage, kind of batting average skills for kind of a sedentary type of player. JD Martinez used to be that guy, no longer that guy anymore. I think it's been turned over to Jordyn Alvarez. But I think Diego Cartaya could be a similar kind of guy, that if he got full-time at bats, he told me he hit 40 home runs, I wouldn't be surprised. And followed that up with a 270, 380 on-base percentage, 270 batting average. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's the kind of offensive threat we're talking about. He will steal no bases, so that will always limit his fantasy upside. And obviously, being a catcher, it's going to limit his fantasy upside as well. Though, he can move to full-time DH like Mr. Alvarez is. Number 9 is Noelvi Marte. He had a strong week and not a great first half. He is a shortstop. He is with the Seattle Mariners. He is in high A. He is only 20 years old. He was 8 for 21, 2 home runs, 5 stolen bases last week, 4 strikeouts, and 5 walks for the season. I'm not going to read the plate appearances anymore. They all have 250 to 300 plate appearances. 246 batting average, a 340 on-base percentage. I love that 100-point split there. 9 home runs, 10 stolen bases. So half of his stolen bases he did in a week. Very Nicky Lopez of him. 23% strikeout rate and 11% walk rate. I still have his fantasy ceiling as a top 10 shortstop. I simply say ignore the batting average and focus on the tools and the ability to control the strike zone. He has impact potential. This is a guy's chance to be a very special player. He definitely controls the strike zone well. Again, 23% strikeout. Do you wish it was 17? Of course. But a low 20 strikeout rate is absolutely acceptable. That is very average big leaguer rate. 11% is a little bit above average. So if you give me an average hit tool with the power speed combination, that's the ultimate player for me I'm looking for, because that's going to be a guy who hits 260, 270 with 100 points on top of that. So it's a 340 on base percentage with a chance to go 20-20. If you had every player on your team that did that was his baseline, you would win every year, right? I mean, so that's the kind of player that you want. And if you have guys like this, and then you have what's the guy that was all power? Then you get Jhonkensy from Cleveland, Noel. Then I guess it's Noel, by the way. I guess it could be Noel. I knew a guy in my working days named Noel. His spelled it Noel. He was from Dallas, Texas. Big, thick Texas accent, and his name was Noel. So maybe it's Jhonkensy Noel. I don't know, but I'm going to say Noel. It'll be very Christmas-like. You could carry a guy like Jhonkensy when you have good players who are carrying your batting average and on base percentage at other positions, and that's what allows you to do that. I'm going to talk about Adolis Garcia a lot. He is not a batting average on base percentage guy, just not. But he brings so much fantasy goodness otherwise. As long as you can cover and you're playing in a either a rotisserie league or maybe even a head-to-head league, if you care about batting average on base percentage, whatever category you have, as long as you can carry that guy's batting average or on base percentage, whatever again category you follow, you can get that goodness. But if you have a bunch of guys that can't hit, you're going to tank that particular category. And if you tank a category, it's very, very difficult in a rotisserie league, which is primarily what I play, to ever win. I remember Lenny Melnick always used to punt saves. Well, if you punt saves, I mean, if you're playing in a 15-team league, all of a sudden your max is 141, right? So, I mean, you decide not to have any, or maybe you get an extra point just because somebody else decided to punt saves. I mean, it's hard to make up those 14 points, particularly in dynasty leagues where your top 5 or 6 teams that are competing have an all-star at every team. All-star at every position. That's what it comes down. If you play a 15-team dynasty league, you're not playing a single year league where you're drafting. You still got guys that you drafted in the 18th round that are sitting on your on your squad. No, you have built this dynasty league up over years, and you've got great players at every position. You probably have 6 or 7 top 3 third round and better draft picks on your team. And guess what? So does 4 or 5 other of your teammates, the guys that you're in your league that are all competing. They've got that same profile. So you can't come in with a lousy hitter and who's going to tank a particular category for you and think, oh, gee, I'm going to win all the other ones that do well. You're not going to win because the other guys in front of you. We have one league that the guy has 140 points in our league, and I have a great team in that league. I have 120 to 125 points. I have no chance to catch this guy. His team is that good. And that's what you get in with these dynasty leagues. You've got to have great players, which means that players like Noelvi Marte and stars are a huge difference maker in these kinds of leagues. Number 10 is another famous guy, and that is Marcelo Mayer, shortstop with the Boston Red Sox. He is in low A. He is 19 years old. He was 10 for 23, 2 home runs, a stolen base, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks. For the season, he's only had 205 plate appearances, so he must have had some injuries along the way. 291 batting average, a 371 on-base percentage, 7 home runs, 10 stolen bases, a 28% strikeout rate, which is a little disconcerting, 11% walk rate. Solid all-around skills with a ceiling of a Corey Seager-type player. I keep saying that because I do believe the speed will fade. He's a big kid. I think he's only going to get bigger. I think he's going to hit. I think there's going to be solid power. Kind of a Xander Bogaerts type of player. And it makes a lot of sense because you can see you can see the Red Sox allowing, after Xander Bogaerts plays through his contract, you could see Marcelo Mayer kind of coming in and taking over for that, or first starting at second base and then moving around. This guy's a chance to be a very, very good player. 25-100 kind of production upside. Number 11 is James Triantos. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He didn't play. I went to 2 Myrtle Beach games before I headed off. I was only there for a few weeks, actually maybe 3. And he must have been on the IL, but I never saw him play because he's with the Cubs, and that's where Myrtle Beach is a low A Cub affiliate. He's third baseman. He's still in low A. He's only 19 years old. He was 6 for 17, 3 home runs, a stolen base, 2 strikeouts, and 2 walks for the week. And for the season, 280, 350, 5 home runs, 9 stolen bases, and 17.5% walk rate, 17.5% strikeout rate, 8% walk rate. Solid all-around tools, ceiling of a full-time regular. I think a lot of people thought this guy would really blow up. He had a really interesting year last year and primarily playing in the complex league. But look, he played the entire season as a 19-year-old. Still think the upside is 15-plus home run pop, single-digit stolen bases. I think he looked better at second base than he would at third base from a fantasy standpoint. You want to see your third baseman have a little bit more pop than that, but the Cubs appear to have moved into third base full time. So I kind of like the player. I think a lot of people thought he was going to be a star. I don't see a star, but I see a guy who could be a really interesting contributor. Last hitter before we take a break is Hunter Goodman. He is a catcher. He is with the Colorado Rockies. He is in low A, and he is 22 years old. He was 10 for 24, 4 home runs, no stolen bases, 5 strikeouts, and 5 walks. And for the season, 295 average, a 372 on base percentage, 22 home runs, 4 stolen bases, 24% strikeout rate, 8% walk rate. I mean,